Warlocks. Hi, how we doing? Strand, for y'all. It's pretty darn good too. Let's talk some builds. Sorry for the delay here. The first build I want to discuss is what I feel like the identity of Strand is for Warlocks, and that is a Threadling build. Your Strand exotic is Swarmers, where destroying a Tangle spawns a Threadling, and Threadlings unravel targets that they damage. Unraveling targets is quite big, as it is what will allow us to spawn more Tangles, which we then shoot to not only do all of the things that the seasonal artifact enables, but also Unravel is just pretty good as it is, and plays a big part in Season 20. Only seems natural to make a Threadling build, so let's get started. Note that you can rotate out Swarmers for something like Verity's Brow if you would like. We're not going to be covering that build in this video, but you can absolutely use what you learned from this video and apply it to a Verity's Brow build. Remember, just because it's not a good looking exotic doesn't mean it's not good. Aspects. We just have the two still, that is it. Mindspun Invocation is probably the lock for this build. Not that Weaver's Call is bad or anything, because it's also more Threadlings, but for anyone watching in the future, we just gotta play it by ear. I would be surprised if Bungie introduces another Threadling type aspect though, unless they really want Warlocks to play with Threadlings. Fragments. Thread of Generation. Easily the number one choice here. Dealing damage generates grenade energy. We're going to want a lot of grenade energy for this build. It is our main source of Threadlings. We are going to be eating a lot of grenades. Thread of Evolution also feels like a staple here. Threadlings do more damage and they go farther. Kind of a no-brainer pick, right? That's what we're doing here is Threadlings. Thread of Rebirth can also feel like a staple. Strand Weapon Final Blows give a chance to make a Threadling. But I honestly could not tell how much this was really doing for me in moment-to-moment gameplay, as I felt like I was just constantly surrounded by Threadlings and Unravel effects, just completely torturing the enemies I was fighting already. Also, if you end up with a gun with the Hatchling perk, then I don't think you need this. Thread of Finality finishers making Threadlings viable? Sure. Do I think it's worth finishing targets that often to spawn a Threadling? Not really. I think it's kind of slow and a little clunky, but if you're finishing targets that often, then, you know, go for it. Continuity I would pick exclusively for the boosted Unravel effects, as you're going to have that up quite frequently. It's a pretty underrated portion of the build. Propagation is obviously going to be nice after Season 20, but I think your Threadlings are going to be doing most of the unraveling work. This is maybe something to try out in seasons where we don't have Strand artifact perks. Thread of Ascent is an interesting option. Basically, half of the Demolitionist perk, where when you use a grenade, you auto-reload your gun, and it gives you airborne effectiveness and handling for a short time and 10 mobility, blah, blah, blah. But let's be real, we're in this for the reload. It is definitely convenient, and you're going to be using your grenade quite a lot. So it's an interesting option, especially for slower reloading weapons like machine guns. If you can be cognizant of the fact that you get a free reload every single time you eat your grenade, I can see this being a very valuable tool in your kit. But if you're not paying attention to it, obviously it's not going to have as much value. All that being said, if you use a weapon with Demolitionist, then eating your grenade will provide the same effect if you have that gun out. We'll talk about guns in a moment. I don't know if it's just because I got too used to Titan and them being able to spam Woven Mail that I think I might want to spec into it. I don't know. You're going to be sitting in a Healing Rift a very large portion of the time given the aspects we're using, but man, did I kind of miss having Woven Mail. I tended to want to rush forward with my Threadlings and just steamroll my way through enemies, but that can get you into trouble in some higher difficulty stuff. Warding is looking appealing to me in particular, but as usual, if you don't think you need it or you want it, you can swap it out. Orbs of Power did feel a little problematic for me though, we'll talk about that. Transmutation also fits with warding, with the whole spawning Tangles thing, if you feel like you're not spawning Tangles basically on cooldown already. I would say survivability is definitely one of the weaknesses of this build, and we'll talk about that as well. Thread of Mind works in Season 20 specifically because of artifact perks, and it is very strong as a result. But outside of having those perks, this is not a Suspend-based build. That's coming next. So in Season 20, Thread of Mind, go for it. Other seasons, you might need something else. I think I'm going to go for Generation, Evolution, Mind, specifically in Season 20, and probably Warding or Continuity, specifically also for Season 20. I think Ascent is okay for lower difficulty stuff, or if you don't have a Demolitionist gun, but higher difficulty, I might want Warding as some kind of a backup. Continuity is going to be good in Season 20 specifically because of the artifact perks where tangles just go insane. Same thing for Mind. It is a Season 20 fragment, but after Season 20, we just need to see. Stats, you want the big three: Resilience, Discipline, Recovery. Go heavy in them all. This is a grenade-based build. We want to survive. If you're planning on having Woven Mail, then you can go medium Resilience. Otherwise, we're just going for as much as possible here of the big three. Let's talk guns in here. What should you be using? Well, top contender is a gun with Demolitionist on it. It just makes sense. Kills get you grenade energy. Using your grenade automatically reloads your gun. The Raid Auto Rifle can get Demolitionist and Hatchling at the same time. That's pretty good for this build if your power weapon isn't a machine gun, because you can basically use machine guns as primaries as of this video. Circular Logic from Terminal Overload, also a strand gun, can get Demo as well, but Demo is in the same slot as Hatchling and Golden Tricorn, unfortunately. If you don't want to use strand guns, then I would probably find whatever you got that has Demolitionist on it and make that your main gun for the build. You might also like Hatchling more. I think the decision's kind of up to you as you play with both perks. Artifact perk-wise, this should be pretty simple. We're picking up all of the strand and the void perks. When in doubt, you're picking up the perks for the element of the build that you are running. Tangles are good. They're not the main focus of the build, but they're still incredibly strong in Season 20 either way, so just get the perks. This brings us to mods. Obviously, we want grenade energy, as much as we can get. I know what you're thinking. Oh, grenade kickstart, scoop orbs, perfect. And yes, that is something we can do. Personally, I struggled with the orb game here at first because I wasn't consistently killing with the guns I needed to be killing with to spawn orbs. It felt like my Threadlings and Unravel were doing a lot of the heavy lifting, and thus I was not getting that steady flow of orbs that I would want. And unfortunately, firepower does not spawn orbs of power if you consume your grenade and then your spawned Threadlings get the kill. It only works if you throw the grenade. Then those Threadlings will count for an orb, which you can do, but generally you want to consume the grenade more often than not. However, shortly after I started working on this build, the Reaper mod was re-enabled, and this generates an orb anytime you get a kill after using your class ability, which provided way more consistent orb generation for me. Pre-Reaper mod, I just felt like mowing everything down with a machine gun to spawn orbs kind of took the fun out of the build. But I also tend to think that if I'm not going infinite in a build, that the build is a failure, which it's not. After some trial and error, I threw on a strand machine gun, and a lot of those orb problems started to go away once I became okay with the fact that there's going to be some downtime here and there, and when your abilities are not up, that's when you go crazy with the machine gun. If you're having issues spawning or collecting orbs, then I think stacks on stacks and charged up will be the play while you learn the flow of the build more. The less of an issue you're having with orbs, the fewer amount of mods you need to help facilitate. I'm also going to double up on Grenade Kickstart because as we learned in the Build Crafting 101 video, 4 charge and 2 kickstart is going to get us really close to regenerating about 50% of our grenade when we use it. Heavy-handed is an okay way to guarantee an orb, but considering we have very minimal melee regeneration, this doesn't feel reliable enough, and the same goes for impact induction. You're just not going to have your melee that often, but is it better than nothing? Absolutely. Helm, we're definitely going Strand Siphon. Because firepower doesn't work for consumed grenades, I'm guessing that Ashes to Assets also doesn't work, and some very quick testing feels like that theory was proven true, but I could be wrong there. If you want to triple up on Siphon, sure. I don't use the orbs for super gain. I use them for armor charge. So if you want to use just 1 Siphon and then 2 other things of your choice, that is fine. Arms, at least 2 grenade kickstart. I think 3 is maybe pushing it where I'd rather have a reload speed mod or one of these ability mods. Chest, we have a stat mod, charged up, resistance, and unflinching. You can take out the stat mod if you want. You could sneak in a Strand Reserves mod and give more ammo to that machine gun of yours, and if you wean yourself off of charged up, then we can double up on resistance. Legs, we got stacks on stacks, and then either double innervation or double strand surge. If you don't need the stacks on stacks, then just double up on surge and throw in innervation. Surge and innervation, just both of these, just cram them in there. If you are going surge, I would throw in a time dilation in your class item, but if you're not, I'm going all ability mods, double bomber, distribution. You're incentivized to use your class ability almost on cooldown, so let's make the most of it. But like I said earlier, if you're having orb issues, then slot in a Reaper mod and see how it goes. This build is considerably more tempered than some of the Titan stuff we discussed recently, and even the next Warlock build that we're going to talk about. We want to have as much uptime on our grenade and class ability as possible, which can also be translated as you should use your abilities as much as possible because using your abilities boosts energy to your other abilities. You're going to rush with your Threadlings as they push forward and start hitting enemies. You're going to continue to deal as much damage as possible to keep Thread of Generation rolling. You're going to kill stuff in a way that generates orbs of power for your Siphon mod. And finally, in Season 20 anyway, you're going to shoot Tangles in order to suspend enemies to get class energy to spawn more Threadlings from your class ability. This is a full-scale attack. You have Threadlings everywhere. They're spreading Unravel. You have Unraveling rounds. You're suspending things with Tangles. You are using almost every single aspect of Strand at the highest levels possible. In Season 20, we'll talk about post-Season 20 in a moment. But this is not a build that is necessarily going to be able to go infinite all the time. You are going to have those in-between moments where you're just letting your machine gun rip or your other guns rip, and that's totally fine. Embrace those moments because this is where you can let Unraveling rounds fly and spread everywhere and make a bunch of orbs. This is where you're popping Tangles. This is where, I don't know, you're reloading your guns because your grenade is about to come back up. In Season 20, this build is a ton of fun because of the boosted effect from Tangles. After Season 20, I do have some concerns for the build as we're going to lose pretty much all of that Suspend potential, and no Suspend potential means no more Thread of Mind, which means no more class ability energy boosts. And after running this version of the build with no seasonal mods, you know, it's actually not too bad. You know, I didn't use the two big mods from Season 20, Untangler or Threaded Blast, and as you can see in this seasonal content footage, we're still rolling pretty hard. You know, I tagged some favors here and there to get some ability energy back, but for the most part, we're cruising pretty well. The Legend campaign was more of the same. Again, I didn't use either of the big Strand mods, but I'm playing a bit more conservatively because I'm by myself and I'm 15 levels under. It's still working out, though. It's still working out pretty well. Demolitionist is really helping me here, but trying to make orbs with a primary is a bit tougher in Legend and Master content, so I'm leaning on Reaper a bit to help with orbs. One thing that I really tried to do as I practiced this build was getting into the rhythm of getting orbs immediately after I ate my grenade, so that way I always had grenade kickstart ready to go for my next grenade. With a group, this is going to be less of an issue, but in solo content, the higher the difficulty, the more annoying it's going to be to make orbs if you're not on a machine gun, because Threadlings are honestly going to get in your way more than your own primary will. If you are on a machine gun, then, you know, it's not going to be as big of a deal because they just mow down everything. All in all, very fun build to use, especially when you have those moments of all your Threadlings launching out together and just absolutely dominating a wave of enemies, or having those moments where you can chain your grenade and class ability rapid fire, and just having those moments where everything comes together. It's very, very satisfying. Now, I'm sure there is an army of people yelling at me right now, and yes, there are many, many variants of this build. You can use Grapple instead of Threadling Grenade, for example. This makes it so you can shift some mods around, like now you can use Firepower, because that works with the Grapple melee, and that's going to make Woven Mail easier to get to increase your survivability, because you're making an orb right there. You can use Verity's Brow instead if you're using Grapple. Tons of grenade energy and you're boosting your team. You can use Nezarex instead with Void Weapons for more energy, and in Season 20, that has synergy with the Void mods. You can use Fellwinters instead for the Weaken Explosion effect if you're not already destroying everything already. There are so many variant branches that I simply cannot cover them all. But again, this video is designed to just lay the foundation of a build. And then hopefully you as a player will go experiment, or you'll drop some knowledge in the comments about something you like using, and someone else is going to pick that knowledge up, and then they'll spread it around. Maybe in the future I can do a variant strand video, something along those lines. We experiment with some offshoots, but I just don't want to overwhelm people in the very first video for Warlocks. This next build is another infinite suspend build, but y'all, this build is so good that I personally will not be using it in lower level content because it literally makes the game boring for me. It's that good. It's that efficient. Osteostriga, Necrotic Grip. They have synergy with each other. This was a very popular setup last year. It is still a very popular setup this year. I will explain if you don't know already. Osteostriga triggers a poison burst when you kill a target or hit multiple crits in a row. This burst can hit other enemies and can give you ammo back if the poison kills something. This poison damage also ramps up over time after it procs. So if you tag something with the poison damage and then don't shoot them again, you'll eventually start hitting poison damage ticks of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,000 damage a tick. Necrotic Grip, on the other hand, poisons a target when you hit them with a melee attack of any kind, and killing a target spreads the poison. Both of these use the same poison mechanic and thus happen to work in tandem. The poison from Osteo is affected by Necrotic and vice versa. This means you can mow things down with Osteo, kill those things, the poison burst procs, and then continuously procs as long as there are enemies within range of the poison. It just keeps chaining. So how does this work with Strand? Well, we have Mind Spun Invocation, where consuming your Shackle Grenade gives you Weaver's Trance, where whenever you get a final blow with Weaver's Trance up, you create a suspending detonation in a similar way that Osteostriga's Poison Burst triggers. This means you're killing things, which can spread poison and suspend to other enemies, which will kill them, which will then spread poison and suspend to other enemies until there is nothing left. Let's go over the build. Aspects, we need Mind Spun Invocation. Weaver's Call is not necessary if another aspect comes along that fits better with this setup. Fragments, we want anything that boosts us from suspending targets or boosts the suspend debuff in any sort of way. I've gone with Continuity for the boosted effect, Generation because it's just very good and it helps with our grenade regeneration, and Mind because we're going to be suspending targets all the time. The fourth slot I think is open. You can do Ascent for the rare times where you're going to need to reload. You can do Isolation to sever beefier targets. Warding is also incredibly easy to proc with this build and also helps with one of the weaknesses of this build, and that also means that you don't need to spec into Resilience as much. You're going to be littering Orbs of Power everywhere to the point where as long as there are some enemies to kill, you are going to have Woven Mail on you. Stats, the big three. Again, Resilience, Recovery, Discipline. The overwhelming majority of the build is using Osteostriga and eating your grenade. High Recovery gives high Rift uptime for survivability. Resilience is going to give us more survivability. Discipline is for our grenade. Strength is not a part of our build at all. Neither is Mobility. Neither is Intellect. I am sorry that there's not much nuance here. You will see why soon. Artifact perks, same deal. Take the Strand, take the Void, leave the Cannoli. We don't need the Solar at all. Just refer to the picture on screen. Mods, literally anything that gets us more grenade energy, we want it. I'm also going with Kinetic Surge mods to boost the damage of Osteostriga, since that's all we're going to be shooting really, although Weaver's Call is all final blows. It's not just Striga that'll cause a suspend. Helm, I have a Siphon mod and a Heavy Ammo Finder. We're all guns here. I just want to go heavy on guns. Gloves, I'm a little torn because we don't really need reload speed unless you want it for your heavy, then go nuts if you do. We aren't dealing damage with our grenade, so anything that does that is out. But then anything related to melee energy to me is also out because our strength is going to be really low. I did end up going with Impact Induction for the times where I do have my melee, just gives a boost to my grenade a little bit more. But I think you can experiment here, could even go Grenade Kickstart, but if you do, you probably shouldn't use Surge mods. And then Heavy Handed for the very rare melee kills, making an orb, but honestly, It's kind of your call on all glove-related things. Chest, we have charged up and resistance mods, keeping it very simple here. Boost, we're rocking those surge mods and stacks on stacks if you want to do that. Class item, we have a couple of bombers and a time dilation to keep the surge rolling. This is a build that I don't believe has a ton of nuance to it because it is gun driven. We shoot the gun, we hold W. Y'all, let me tell you that this build, again, is so good that I am banning myself from using it in anything that is less than a piece of master content. Vanguard Ops, banned. Season playlist, banned. It's so good that it's boring to me. I really don't like using Osteo and Necro together because the combo is just so good that it makes the game boring. You can literally just hip fire the gun the entire time, endlessly refilling your magazine, endlessly suspending every target that you ever look at. That's it. It's one of the easiest builds I've ever played. It's one of the most dominant builds I've ever played in pretty much anything at Legend or lower. You don't need to know anything special. You don't need insane thumb skill. All you need to do is equip everything I just said, eat your grenade every 25 seconds, and hold down the trigger. If you have a friend maybe who's a bit of a noob, they struggle with combat, something along those lines, you know, grandma wants on the sticks or something like that, throw on this build, they're going to be fine. Weaver's Trance lasts 25 seconds. Y'all, there is no way in hell this stays 25 seconds. 25 seconds of kills doing a suspend AoE. I'm warning you. I'm warning you right now. I'm not advocating for the nerf. I'm not advocating for it. I'm not saying that it should be. I'm just telling you that there's no way. There's no way this stays the way that it does. I will be shocked if it stays 25 seconds. 15 seconds is what I think it's going to go down to if this does get nerfed. I did not even use the Season 20 mods for most of my testing with this build because I was barely interacting with Tangles because I did not need to interact with Tangles. This build will survive well past Season 20, assuming nothing about it gets adjusted. What I will say is that when doing Master Hypernet Current, the new strike, I was not as impressed with its performance. I was accidentally rolling without Threat of Warding, so that might have been part of the issue, but enemies in Hypernet don't really stack up as well to promote the use of this build in that strike in particular. In stuff like Battleground Nightfalls, this might be better. Other strikes, it might be better. So just play it by ear depending on what you're doing. The more the enemies are stacking up, the more this build is really going to shine. That's it. That's all I have to say. I mean, just look at the footage. What else do I even need to say? Just spray Osteo Striga. Spray it everywhere, and you just win. And you pick up orbs for Woven Mail, and you win. That's it. The only downside to this build is that you have limited resources when you need to get defensive, but if you take Threat of Warding, then the only times you're going to experience problems is in 1v1 situations versus bosses or more tanky stuff, and even then, that's only going to be if you're like soloing Master or GM content, which I'm really not even doing. The only issue you might run into is not letting the poison kill things because you're just so used to mowing everything down yourself that you don't let the poison do its work. It's ridiculous. This build's ridiculous. Hunters, you're up next. I've done very little research into what makes y'all tick, and I need to unlock some fragments first, but I got you guys soon. And then after that, we're going to branch into the other elements. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.